The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for 12,000 cycles. 900 species lived under its laws. Countless worlds paid tribute to its power. The great chamber where the council met was older than most civilizations. Its walls were made of black stone that came from a dead star. Lights floated in the air like tiny suns. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy sat in curved rows that rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into darkness. Ambassador Vela stood at the center of the chamber. She was tall and thin, with skin like white marble and eyes that had no pupils. Her people were called the Pale Ones, and they had served the council for 6,000 cycles. Today her job was simple. She was presenting a list of primitive worlds that have been discovered in the outer regions. Planet 7291C, she announced in a bored voice. A small rock orbiting a yellow star. One intelligent species. Technology level is basic. They've only recently learned to leave their own world. The council members barely listened. They had heard reports like this 1,000 times before. Primitive species were common. Most of them never amounted to anything important. Councillor Thren sat in the highest seat. He was ancient beyond measure. His body was more machine than flesh now, kept alive by technology that most species could not understand. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched stars die. A single primitive world meant nothing to him. Noted in the records, Thren said. Move on. Vela nodded and was about to continue when a guard entered the chamber. He walked quickly to the center and whispered something to Vela. Her white face showed surprise. Counselor, she said, it seems we have visitors from planet 7291C. They have arrived in our space. A murmur went through the chamber. This was unusual. Primitive species rarely traveled so far from their home worlds. Thren leaned forward. Bring them in. The great doors opened, and 3 humans walked into the chamber. They wore simple gray uniforms. They looked small and fragile compared to many of the alien species watching them. Guards walked on either side of them, weapons ready. Captain James Walker led the group. He was 42 years old, with gray hair at his temples and tired eyes that had seen too much empty space. Behind him walked Lieutenant Maya Cole, a young woman with dark hair and quick, intelligent eyes. She was a linguist who had spent years studying every form of communication humans had ever discovered. Next to her was Commander David Park, a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that rarely smiled. He was the tactical officer, and his eyes moved constantly, watching everything. Their ship, the Endurance, had been humanity's first attempt to travel beyond the solar system. The journey was supposed to take them to a nearby star. Instead, their experimental engine had thrown them across the galaxy. They had been found by a patrol vessel and brought here. James looked up at the massive chamber. He had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of alien faces stared down at him. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange that his mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Vela said. Her voice was cold. You have entered our space without permission. Explain yourselves. James cleared his throat. My name is Captain James Walker. We come from a planet called Earth. We did not mean to enter your space. Our ship had a problem. We ended up here by accident. Maya activated a small translation device on her wrist. It struggled to keep up with the alien languages being spoken around them. She listened carefully, trying to learn as much as she could. Counselor Thren looked down at the humans with ancient eyes. Earth, he repeated. The word sounded strange in his mouth. I do not know this name. What do your people want? We want to go home, James said simply. We are explorers. We did not come here to cause trouble. A few council members laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber. Explorers, one of them said. How charming. Another young species thinking the stars belonged to them. David's hands tightened into fists, but he stayed silent. James had ordered him to stay calm no matter what happened. Thran raised a thin hand, and the laughter stopped. You will be given quarters in the lower district. Your ship will be studied. Perhaps we will return you to your world. Perhaps not. It depends on how useful you prove to be. James wanted to argue, but Maya touched his arm. Not now, she whispered. We need to learn more first. He nodded and stayed quiet. As the guards led them away, Maya noticed something strange. A figure sat in a dark corner of the chamber, separate from the other council members. It was a woman with gray robes and silver hair. Her title was Keeper, and her name was Orla. She maintained the ancient records that no one else was allowed to touch. When Maya had said the word Earth, Orla's entire body had gone stiff. Her eyes had widened. Her hands had gripped the arms of her chair. No one else had noticed, but Maya had been trained to read reactions. Something about that word had frightened the old keeper. Orla watched the humans leave. Her heart was beating fast. She had spent her entire life studying the forbidden texts, ancient writings that spoke of times before the council existed. Most council members thought those texts were just myths, old stories with no meaning. But Orla knew better. She had read every word 1,000 times. And she had seen that word before: Earth, Terra. Different names in different dead languages, but all pointing to the same world. A world that was supposed to stay hidden. A world that was never supposed to find its way back to the stars. The prophecy was clear. When the children of that world returned, everything would change. The old powers would wake up. The galaxy would never be the same. Orla stood on shaking legs. She had to check the texts again. She had to be sure. Part of her hoped she was wrong. Part of her hoped this was just a coincidence. But deep in her heart, she knew the truth. The humans had arrived, and the galaxy was about to discover that some forgotten worlds were forgotten for a reason. She walked out of the chamber and headed toward the sealed vault beneath the council building. The answers she needed were waiting in the darkness below. Answers that had been buried for thousands of cycles. The sleeping inheritors had finally woken up, and Orla was the only one who understood what that meant. Orla walked through dark hallways that no one had used in centuries. Dust covered the floor. The lights were dim and flickered with age. She passed through 3 locked doors, each one requiring a code that only she knew. Finally, she stood before the entrance to the archive of lost names. The vault had been sealed for 3,000 cycles. The last keeper to enter it had gone mad from what she found inside. Orla remembered reading about her in the records. The woman had spent her final days screaming about sleeping gods and forgotten children. Everyone thought she had lost her mind. Now Orla was not so sure. She pressed her hand against the cold metal door. Ancient machines scanned her body. A voice spoke in a language so old that even Orla barely understood it. Then the door opened with a sound like a dying breath. Inside, the air was cold and still. Crystalline tablets floated in the darkness, each one containing knowledge from before the council existed. They glowed with soft blue light. Orla walked among them carefully, reading their surfaces with trembling fingers. She found what she was looking for near the back of the vault. A tablet larger than the others, covered in writing that seemed to shift and move when she looked at it. The prophecy of the forgotten world. Meanwhile, James and his crew had been taken to the lower district of the station. Their quarters were small and plain. The walls were gray metal. The furniture was basic. It was clear that the council did not think much of them. James sat on a hard bed and stared at the ceiling. They treat us like animals, he said. Like we are nothing. Maya was sitting at a small table, studying everything she had recorded during their time in the council chamber. We need to be patient, she said. We are in their territory. We do not know their rules or their history. Fighting them now would be foolish. David stood near the door, watching the hallway through a small window. I counted 12 guards between here and the docking bay, he said. I also noticed 4 security checkpoints. If we need to run, we have options. James looked at him. We are not running. Not yet. We need to understand what is happening first. Maya nodded. Something strange happened in that chamber. Did you see the old woman in the corner? The one in gray robes? I saw her, James said. What about her? When I said the word Earth, she reacted. Her whole body changed. She was afraid. I am sure of it. David turned from the door. Afraid of us? We are 3 humans with no weapons. What could she possibly fear? I do not know, Maya admitted. But I intend to find out. In the archive of lost names, Orla was reading the prophecy for the 100th time. The words were burned into her mind now. The tablet spoke of a world that existed before all others. A world where beings of incredible power had first learned to touch the stars. These beings had created life across the galaxy. They had built structures that could survive for millions of cycles. They had written laws into the very fabric of space itself. But something had gone wrong. The beings had grown tired of their power. They had seen what it could do, the destruction it could cause. So they made a choice. They would sleep. They would forget who they were. They would become simple creatures again and learn to live without their abilities. They sealed away their knowledge. They hid their world from the rest of the galaxy. They removed its name from every record and every memory. And they began again as children, knowing nothing of their true nature. The prophecy called them the sleeping inheritors, and it warned that one day they would wake up. Orla set down the tablet. Her hands were shaking badly now. The humans called their world Earth, but the tablet gave it another name. A true name. A name that was not just a word, but a key. A key that could unlock everything the sleeping inheritors had hidden away. She had to tell someone. But who would believe her? The council thought the ancient texts were just stories. Thren had dismissed them many times. He believed only in power that he could see and touch. Prophecies meant nothing to him. But Orla knew she had to try. She found Thren in his private chamber. The ancient counselor was sitting in a chair that kept his failing body alive. Tubes and wires connected him to machines that hummed softly in the darkness. Keeper, he said without looking at her. It is late. What do you want? The humans, Orla said. They are not what they appear to be. Thren turned his head slowly. His eyes were like 2 dying stars. They are primitives. Their technology is simple. Their bodies are weak. What could they possibly be? They are the sleeping inheritors, Orla said. The prophecy is coming true. For a long moment, Thren said nothing. Then he laughed. It was a dry, rattling sound. You have spent too much time in your dusty vault. The prophecy is a myth. A story told by fools who lived before the council. The story names their world, Orla insisted. It describes their species. Everything matches. They forgot who they were, but now they are returning to the stars. The prophecy says this will awaken the old powers. Thren stopped laughing. Something flickered in his ancient eyes. Fear. Just for a moment, but Orla saw it. Even if this were true, he said slowly, what would you have me do? Kill them? That would only prove that we fear them. Keep them here, Orla said. Do not let them return to their world. Do not let them spread the word that they have found us. If the prophecy is real, we must control this situation. Thren was quiet for a long time. Outside his window, ships moved through the darkness of space. Empires rose and fell in the time it took him to make decisions. Finally, he nodded. Very well. I will order them detained. We will study them more carefully. But I do this only to satisfy your concerns, Keeper. I do not believe in prophecies. Orla bowed and left. She did not believe him. She had seen the fear in his eyes. He remembered the old stories better than he wanted to admit. Back in the lower district, David was the first to notice something was wrong. The guards outside their quarters had doubled. New security checkpoints had appeared in the hallway. Something has changed, he said quietly. They are locking us in. James stood up. Can we reach our ship? Not easily. Not anymore. Maya looked worried. What did we do? We answered their questions. We did not threaten anyone. It does not matter what we did, James said. His voice was calm but cold. What matters is what we do now. David, start mapping every exit you can find. Maya, keep learning their language. If we are going to get out of here, we need to understand them better than they understand us. David nodded and moved toward the door. But before he could open it, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy footsteps. Many of them. Guards appeared outside. A voice spoke through the door. By order of the council, you are now in protective custody. You will remain in your quarters until further notice. James looked at his crew. They were trapped on an alien station, surrounded by species who saw them as primitives. They had no weapons, no allies, and no way home. But James Walker had survived worse odds before, and he was not going to give up now. They want to keep us here, he said quietly. That means they are afraid of something. And if they are afraid, that means we have power they do not understand. Maya nodded slowly. We need to find out what that power is. Outside the door, the guards stood watch. They thought they were containing a threat. They did not realize that the real danger was not the humans themselves. It was what the humans represented. A truth that the council had tried to bury for thousands of cycles. A truth that was about to come back into the light. The forgotten world had been found, and nothing would ever be the same again. 3 days passed. The humans remained locked in their quarters. Guards brought them food and water, but refused to answer questions. James spent his time planning. Maya studied the alien language through the thin walls. David found 17 different ways out of the room, but all of them led to more guards. On the 4th night, something changed. David heard a sound in the ventilation system above their room. A soft scratching. Then a panel in the ceiling slid open and a face appeared. It was small and covered in short brown fur. Large eyes blinked down at them. Please do not scream, the creature whispered. I am here to help. James grabbed a metal cup, the only thing close to a weapon in the room. Who are you? My name is Sierra. I work in the maintenance tunnels. I clean the systems that keep this station running. She dropped down from the ceiling and landed softly on the floor. She was barely 4 feet tall. Her hands had 6 fingers each. I have been watching you since you arrived. Why? Maya asked. Because the council fears you, and anything the council fears is interesting to me. Sierra's large eyes moved between the 3 humans. My people were conquered by the council 2,000 cycles ago. We had cities and art and music. Now we clean their floors and fix their machines. We are nothing to them. David lowered his guard slightly. Why would you risk helping us? Because there are stories, Sierra said. Old stories that my grandmother told me. Stories about a world that the council tried to forget. A world so powerful that the founders of the council ran away from it. She pointed at James. I think you come from that world. Maya stepped forward. What stories? What did they say about us? Sierra looked around nervously. Not here. Too many years. Follow me through the tunnels. I know a place where we can talk. James looked at his crew. They had no reason to trust this alien, but they also had no other options. Lead the way, he said. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow. Pipes ran along the walls. Strange machines hummed in the shadows. Sierra moved quickly, her small body fitting easily through spaces that the humans had to squeeze through. They traveled for nearly an hour before she stopped at a small room filled with broken equipment. We are safe here, she said. No cameras. No guards. This is where my people meet when we want to talk freely. David checked the door and nodded. It is secure. Sierra sat on an old box and folded her hands. My grandmother was a keeper of memories. Before the council took our world, we had our own history. Our own stories. One of those stories was about the first ones. The first ones? James repeated. The beings who created life in this galaxy, Sierra explained. They were not gods, but they were close. They could bend space with their minds. They could live for thousands of cycles. They built things that still exist today, even though no one knows how they work. Maya was recording everything on her small device. What happened to them? They disappeared. The stories say they chose to forget. They wanted to start over as simple creatures. They sealed away their power and went to sleep. Sierra's eyes grew wide. But the stories also say they would wake up one day. And when they did, the galaxy would change forever. James felt a chill run down his spine. And you think we are connected to these first ones? I do not know, Sierra admitted. But the council does. They have locked you away. They are afraid. The council is never afraid of primitives. They are afraid of you for a reason. Before anyone could respond, a new voice spoke from the doorway. She is right. Everyone turned. Standing in the shadows was Orla, the keeper of the archive. Her gray robes were dirty from traveling through the tunnels. Her silver hair was messy, but her eyes were sharp and clear. David moved to protect James and Maya, but Orla raised her hands. I am not here to harm you. I am here because you need to know the truth. Why would you help us? James demanded. You are part of the council. I am a keeper of knowledge, Orla said. My duty is to the truth, not to the council. She walked into the room and sat down heavily. She looked tired. I have spent my whole life studying the forbidden texts, ancient writings that the council wants everyone to forget. Those texts speak of your world. Maya moved closer. What do they say? Orla reached into her robes and pulled out a small object. It was a shard of crystal, no bigger than her thumb. It glowed with soft golden light. Your world has many names in the old texts. Earth, Terra, Gaia, Midgard. But those are not its true name. Its true name is something else. Something that was hidden even from the texts themselves. She held up the crystal. This shard contains that name. The real name. The name that was spoken when your world was first created. James stared at the crystal. What happens if someone speaks it? I do not know for certain, Orla admitted. The texts say it is a key that will unlock what your ancestors sealed away. It is encoded in your blood, passed down through generations. You forgot your power, but you did not lose it. It is sleeping inside you, waiting to be awakened. David shook his head. This sounds like a fairy tale. I thought so too, Orla said, until I saw the council's reaction to your arrival. Thren is terrified. He has ordered your ship destroyed. He plans to keep you here forever. He will never let you return to your world. Silence filled the room. James looked at Maya and David. They had come to the stars looking for knowledge. They had found something far more dangerous. Why are you giving this to us? James asked Orla. What do you want? I want to know if the prophecy is real, Orla said. I have spent my entire life wondering. Now I have a chance to find out. She held out the crystal toward James. Take it. Speak the name. Let us see what happens. James reached out slowly. The crystal felt warm in his hand. It seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. James, Maya said quietly. Are you sure about this? He looked at her. No, but we are trapped here. The council will never let us go. If there is any chance that this is real, we have to take it. David moved to the door. Guards are coming. I can hear them in the tunnels. Whatever you are going to do it now. James closed his eyes. He could feel the crystal growing warmer. Something stirred deep inside him, something that had been sleeping his whole life. He did not understand it, but he recognized it. It felt like coming home. He opened his mouth and spoke the name. The word was not in any language he knew. It was older than language. It was a sound that existed before words were invented. It came from somewhere deep inside him, a place he never knew existed. The crystal shattered. Golden light exploded outward. The entire station shook. Lights flickered and died. Alarms began to scream. And deep within James Walker, something ancient finally woke up. Maya gasped and fell to her knees. Her eyes glowed with soft golden light. Words poured from her mouth in languages that had been dead for 1,000,000 years. David grabbed the wall as strength flooded through his body. His senses became sharper than any human had ever experienced. He could hear heartbeats 3 rooms away. He could see in the darkness as clearly as daylight. Orla watched with tears streaming down her face. The prophecy was real. The sleeping inheritors had finally awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The light lasted only a few seconds, but it changed everything. James opened his eyes and saw the world differently. Not just the room around him, but the fabric of reality itself. He could see the energy flowing through the walls. He could see the connections between every atom, every particle, every tiny piece of matter. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Maya rose from the floor. Her eyes still glowed faintly gold. She looked at her hands as if seeing them for the first time. I understand now, she whispered. I can read their languages. All of them. Not just the words, but the meaning behind the words. The history. The feelings, everything. David flexed his fingers. He felt stronger than he had ever felt in his life. His body hummed with energy. What happened to us? You woke up, Orla said. She was staring at them with a mixture of wonder and fear. The name unlocked what was sleeping inside you. What your ancestors sealed away when they chose to forget. Sira pressed herself against the wall, her large eyes wide. The stories were true, she breathed. The first ones. You are their children. Before anyone could respond, the station shook again. This time, it was not the awakening causing it. Explosions echoed through the tunnels. Guards were shouting in the distance. The council knows something has happened, Orla said. We need to move. They ran through the maintenance tunnels. Sira led the way. David found that he could sense the guards before they even got close. He guided the group away from danger again and again. Maya listened to the alien communications crackling through the station systems. She understood every word now. They are in chaos, she reported. Something is happening across the entire station. The systems are going crazy. They do not know what is causing it. James felt a strange pull, like something was calling to him. He followed the feeling, leading the group deeper into the station. They came to a massive door that looked like it had not been opened in centuries. What is this place? Sira asked. Orla's face went pale. The heart, the original control center of this station. It was built by the founders. No one has been able to open it since they disappeared. James walked toward the door. His hand touched the surface, and the metal began to glow. Ancient symbols appeared, responding to his touch. With a sound like a giant breathing, the door opened. Inside was a room filled with machines that made the Council's technology look like toys. Lights floated in the air. Screens showed images of the entire galaxy. And in the center of the room, a message was waiting. It had been recorded thousands of cycles ago, meant for this exact moment. A figure appeared in the air. It was human. A woman with kind eyes and silver hair. She wore simple clothes and smiled at them like a grandmother greeting her grandchildren. "If you are seeing this," she said, "then the sleep has ended. You have remembered who you are. I am so sorry for what we did to you. We thought forgetting was the only way. We were wrong." James stared at the image. "Who are you?" The recording continued as if it could hear him. "We were called many names. Gods, creators, the first ones. But we were simply people who learned too much too fast. Our power nearly destroyed everything. We fought wars that burned entire galaxies. We killed billions of our own kind." Maya felt tears running down her face. She did not know why she was crying, but the words felt true. They felt like memories she had lost. "So we made a choice," the woman continued. "We would start over. We would seal away our power and become children again. We hoped that by growing up slowly, by suffering and struggling and learning the hard way, we would become wiser, kinder, better than we were before." David thought about human history. The wars, the suffering, the slow progress towards something better. It had all been part of the plan. The beings who could not accept our choice fled. They founded the Council to watch over the galaxy until we returned. But they were afraid of us. They were afraid of what we might become. So they tried to make sure we never found our way back. Outside the room, alarms continued to blare. The Council was mobilizing its entire military. Ships were moving toward the station. "If you have awakened," the recording said, "it means the time has come. The galaxy needs you again. Not as gods or conquerors, but as guides. As helpers. The younger species deserve the chance we never had. The chance to grow without fear." The image began to fade. "Use your power wisely. Remember what we learned through our suffering. And please, forgive us for making you forget." The room fell silent. James looked at Maya and David. They were all changed now. They could feel the power flowing through them. Power that could reshape reality itself. But they also felt the weight of responsibility. Billions of lives depended on what they did next. "The Council fleet is approaching," Maya said. Her eyes glowed as she read the communications. "Hundreds of ships. They intend to destroy this station with us inside it." David moved toward the door. "We can fight. Whatever this power is, we can use it to stop them." "No," James said. His voice was calm but firm. "Fighting is what our ancestors did. It nearly destroyed everything. We need to find another way." Orla stepped forward. "There may be an option." The founders wrote something into the core programming of every Council ship. A protocol that could not be removed. A command that would activate if the inheritors ever returned. "What command?" Maya asked. "I do not know exactly," Orla admitted. "But I know how to trigger it. There is a console here that can send a signal to every ship in the galaxy. A signal that only your voice can activate." James walked to the console. It was ancient but still functional. When he touched it, it came to life. Screens lit up showing the entire galaxy. Millions of ships. Countless worlds. All connected to this one point. "What do I say?" he asked. Orla looked at the old text displayed on the screens. "The words are here. They are a reminder. A promise that the founders made when they created the Council. A promise that the Council has forgotten. James read the words. They were simple, just a few sentences, but they carried the weight of 1,000 generations. He spoke into the console, his voice carried by ancient technology to every corner of the galaxy. The inheritors have returned. The covenant holds. No weapon shall be raised against the children of Earth. No harm shall come to those who seek peace. This is our promise, made in the beginning, honored until the end. The effect was immediate. Across the galaxy, weapon systems shut down. Ships stopped in their paths. Ancient protocols, hidden in the code for thousands of cycles, finally activated. On 100 worlds, dormant structures began to glow with power. Ruins that had stood silent for millennia suddenly came to life. The council fleet surrounding the station went dark. Thren watched from his ship as every weapon, every engine, every system locked itself out of his control. A message appeared on his screen. A single symbol that had not been seen in 12,000 cycles. A blue circle around a single blue dot. The mark of Earth. In the control room, Syrah fell to her knees. The founders kept their promise, she whispered. They never forgot. Maya read the communications flooding in from across the galaxy. Confusion, fear, but also hope. Species that had been crushed under the Council's rule were seeing the ancient structures on their worlds come alive. They were receiving messages of freedom and peace. James stood in the center of the room, feeling the weight of what he had done. The galaxy had shifted. Everything was different now, and humanity's true journey was just beginning. The council chamber was silent. For the first time in 12,000 cycles, the representatives had nothing to say. Their fleets were frozen. Their weapons were useless. The power they had held for so long had slipped through their fingers like water. James Walker walked into the chamber with Maya and David at his sides. They wore the same simple gray uniforms they had worn when they first arrived. But everything else about them had changed. Their eyes glowed faintly with golden light. They moved with a quiet confidence that made even the oldest council members feel small. Councilor Thren sat in his high seat, watching them approach. His ancient face showed no emotion, but his hands were shaking. He had lived for thousands of cycles. He had seen empires fall and stars die, but he had never felt fear like this. James stopped in the center of the chamber and looked up at the assembled representatives. Hundreds of species stared back at him. Some were angry. Some were afraid. Some were curious. "We did not come here to conquer," James said. His voice was calm and clear. It carried to every corner of the massive room. "We came here by accident. We just wanted to go home." Thren leaned forward. "You have destroyed our fleet. You have awakened powers that should have stayed sleeping. What do you want from us?" "We destroyed nothing," James replied. "Your weapons shut themselves down. That was the will of the founders who created your council. They built in a failsafe to protect us, to protect everyone." He paused. "We do not want to rule you. We do not want revenge. We want to help." A murmur went through the chamber. Some representatives laughed. Others shook their heads in disbelief. Ambassador Vela stood from her seat. Her white face was hard with anger. "Help? Your kind has been sleeping in ignorance while we built civilization. What could you possibly offer us?" Maya stepped forward. Her golden eyes swept across the chamber, and every representative felt like she was looking directly at them. "We offer the truth. The Council has lied to you for thousands of cycles. The founders did not create this government to rule the galaxy. They created it to protect the galaxy until we returned." She raised her hand, and images appeared in the air above her. Ancient records, historical documents, proof of what the Council had hidden for so long. The original covenant promised freedom to every world, dignity to every species. The Council was supposed to guide, not control. But over time, those promises were forgotten. The powerful took more and more. The weak were crushed beneath them. Syrah stood in the doorway, watching. Around her, other members of subjugated species had gathered. Servants and workers who had spent their lives being treated as less than nothing. They watched with hope in their eyes. Thren's hands gripped the arms of his chair. You speak of ancient history. The galaxy has changed. We cannot go back to the old ways. We do not ask you to go back, James said. We ask you to go forward. The Covenant still holds. The laws written by the founders still have power. Every species deserves the chance to grow and learn. Every world deserves freedom. David stepped forward, and the gods near the door moved back without thinking. They could feel the power radiating from him. We have the ability to force you to comply. We could take control of your ships, your stations, your worlds. Our ancestors had that power. They used it badly. He let the words hang in the air for a moment. Then he relaxed his stance. We will not make the same mistake. The choice is yours. Accept the Covenant. Work with us to build something better, or refuse, and we will simply leave. We will take our people and go home. But the Covenant will remain. The ancient structures will continue to protect those who need protection. And the Council will have to decide what kind of future it wants. Silence filled the chamber. The representatives looked at each other. Some whispered in their own languages. Others sat in stunned silence. Orla walked to the center of the chamber and stood beside the humans. Her gray robes were dirty and torn, but she held her head high. I have served the Council my entire life, she said. I believed in what we stood for. But I also knew that something was wrong. We lost our way. We forgot why we were created. She looked at James. These humans are not our enemies. They are what we were waiting for. They are the reason the Council exists at all. One by one, representatives began to stand. It started with the smaller species, the ones who had suffered most under Council rule. Syrah's people. The workers and servants who had been forgotten for so long. Then others joined. Species who had grown tired of war and conquest. Species who remembered the old stories. Species who wanted something better for their children. Not everyone stood. Thren remained in his seat. So did many of the powerful factions who had benefited from the old system. But they were no longer the majority. James looked at those who stood with him. The Covenant says that power belongs to all, not to a few. It says that wisdom must guide strength. It says that every voice matters. He turned to address the entire chamber. We will honor those words. We will work beside you, not above you. And we will prove that our ancestors' sacrifice was not in vain. 1 week later, James stood on the bridge of the Endurance. The ship had been repaired, upgraded with technology that humans had not seen in millions of years. Maya and David stood beside him. The Council has agreed to the new Covenant, Maya reported. It will take time, but the old systems are changing. The subjugated species are being freed. The ancient structures are sharing their technology with everyone. David nodded. There will be resistance. Some factions will fight the changes, but they no longer have the power to stop it. James looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a small blue planet was waiting for them. Home, Earth, the world that had given birth to gods, and then chosen to become children again. We need to go back, he said. Our people need to know the truth. They need to understand who they really are. Maya smiled. And who they can become. The Endurance turned toward home. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. Ancient structures were awakening on 1,000 worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries were beginning to talk. The old order was crumbling, and something new was rising in its place. On the Council station, Orla watched the human ship disappear into the distance. She held a small crystal. In her hand, a fragment of the original shard that had contained Earth's true name. It still glowed with faint golden light. "Do you think they will succeed?" Sira asked, standing beside her. Orla thought about everything she had seen. The prophecy had warned of destruction and chaos. It had also promised hope and renewal. The sleeping inheritors had awakened, but they had not become the conquerors that many had feared. They had become something better, something wiser. "Yes," Orla said finally. "I think they will. They suffered for millions of years to learn what their ancestors could not. They earned their power through pain and struggle and love. They will not waste it." Sira nodded. "My grandmother always said that the first ones would return to fix what was broken. I never believed her. And now?" Orla asked. Sira looked at the stars. "Now I believe in everything." The Endurance traveled through space, carrying 3 ordinary humans who had become something extraordinary. They did not know what waited for them on Earth. They did not know how their people would react to the truth. But they knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had shifted. The old lies had been exposed. The Covenant had been restored. And for the first time in 12,000 cycles, the children of Earth were finally going home. They would bring with them a message of hope and possibility. A message that would change everything humanity believed about itself. Earth had been forgotten. Earth had been hidden. Earth had been feared. But now Earth was awake, and the stars would never forget again.